Hey guys, what's crappinin' is a good question to ask. You hear my breathing, you knew I was there. Lurking in the shadows, ready to strike with my silky tones. Don't mind me, I'm just tweeting. I'm just kind of a tweet head. A twat, as they say. On Twitter. What's happening? Dad's listening to interesting music. Yeah, this wasn't necessarily supposed to have lyrics. I might actually skip it. Sorry. This is from College Music on their free music playlist. Copyright free, that is. And I guess technically monetarily free. Man, all these have lyrics, which is just kind of distracting. Not that they're bad songs. I just figured most of them would be like beats and stuff, you know, that we can just chill and chat. You guys might see the timer down below. That's just letting you know when we're going to get started reading. I usually like to give about 20 minutes before we to let everybody kind of roll in here before we kick things off. But hey, Yummy Bells, what's up? Yes, finally, the stream hath begun. You're going to abandon physics homework for Let's Read? Hey, I understand where you're coming from. Physics is no fun. And hopefully I'm all the fun. Elevator beats, check. Check mark. Work from 9 to 6, school from 6 to 9:30, and Let's Read goes live, get home. Perfect timing. You got your day planned out right here. Mona Bell, hello. Alicia, thank you. Vix, you gotta go back to work before the start of the stories. I'm sorry, it's alright. These will all be posted in their entirety tomorrow for the normal time, 7 p.m. You abandoned Philly D for this? That is fine with me. He's just full of, you beautiful bastards. Hey, you beautiful bastards. Here I am to talk about the news and all the bullshit and pretend that I'm not Keemstar for one day. Dirt Goat with the 2 says hello there. Hello, DZRT Goat. I don't know how you pronounce that. Is it dessert goat? Oh, that sounds yummy. We always have a dessert goat at every Thanksgiving. Also, some of the songs are kind of like, there's a massive difference in the sound. Jesus, dude. Have my cyber baby. My cyber baby will be a very large responsibility to take hold and take on in your life, and its gestation period might be upwards of not just the normal 9 months that people carry to term, but this thing could come out in tomorrow in a form of diarrhea, or my cyber baby could be inside of your womb for goodness gracious knows how long. Jamie, no pants party, baby. You guys are all invited. And I'm just saying nonsense, so we're good. Krizia. Woke up from a nap right on time. You came out from the celestial world of the nocturnal world. You were awoken. You had a premonition of this stream. And now you're here. Gothic Rose, what's poppin'? Cashy, what's poppin'? Hey, Miss Molly, she was right on it today. She says, "Hiya, my dear. Hope your night is well. Feels good to be back here." Absolutely. Welcome back, Molly. Thank you for the 5. It's good to have you back. Hope things are going well. How often do I post stories on Spotify? Definitely every other week, but sometimes it's every week. Just depends on how things. I'm going to try to do it more often. I need to do it more often, to be honest, because it was something that I feel like was kind of getting away from me at times, and I know people definitely seem to be demanding it, so I might as well keep up with it. The Hellions Xbox with the $1. Xbox. You guys playing? What are you guys? PS4, Xbox, PC fans? I myself am a PC master race, as I'm sure many of you are. Is my wife still doing voices? I don't have a wife, and I don't know where you got that information from, but if I did have a wife and she did voices, I would be very proud of her. Bro, get jiggy with it. I think it'd be fun to run like a music channel, because I don't know how it works or whatever, but I feel like they just like kind of receive stuff from people and just upload it, and boom shakalaka, there you go. And then a lot of them are like streaming channels too. Oh, I see a big Xbox, PS4 and PC. Yeah. I just have one stalker, this is true. Hey, no worries about donoing. You were startled to know Dad was married. No, I am not married. So I'm not really sure where people got that info from, because it sounded so specific, like your wife, implying you're married, and are they still doing voices, as if though there was a point in time in which I don't really know that they were doing voiceovers, this hypothetical person, but it's all good. You guys think I'm a TikToker? Hey, I definitely wouldn't be closed to the idea of starting a TikTok. I feel like it'd be a lot of fun, because I used to do Vine back in the day until that went to shite, but I would just use it for fun. And I'm married to my work. Yeah, married to the mic. My wife, microphone. Oh, you just wanted people to start asking me. You troll. That's alright, I like trolls. You got me on that one. It was a reverse psychology. Steven, I do, man, I do. This is my gig right here. There's no stopping the wife. The wife will come. Whoever here does voiceovers, your time is now. Present yourself. Make love to the microphone. What's Pradeep doing? Oh, he is laying on my bed behind me, curled up in a ball. It's always so funny how much cats sleep. It's just like, how do you sleep that much? Like, what in your body is constantly being produced to enable you to, like, constantly be in a sleeping state and I don't even know how they do it. It's impressive. I remember one time I had like a towel underneath him recently, and the towel had some frayed, piece of string on it. And the string, like, it was like as I was pulling it out, it was just like so instinctual for him. Even though he was sleeping, he just went right into like murder mode and just went right for that string as I pulled it and like, curled it under his little mittens. And I was pretty impressed. I was like, man, you didn't even know I was going to do that, but you were ready to kill. Go from dead asleep to murder mode in 0.2 seconds is pretty impressive. Babies, Joel, they make you want to sleep. I don't know if Pradeep has any babies, to be honest. He might be raising a family that I don't even know about. Your dog sleeps 23 out of the 24. I feel like dogs too. Like, sometimes I feel kind of bad for animals because they're just doing nothing all the time. But I guess it's me too. Nothing. And I'm sure there's certain aliens or extra dimensional beings that look at us humans and they just sort of shake their head in disappointment. Busta, what are your thoughts on e-boys? Hey, I'm an e-boy. You're talking to one right now. Let's boy. Let's read the e-boy. Look at my e-boy stream. Get my premium Snapchat. Get my bath water. I don't really take baths. I guess you'd have to get my shower water, shower remnants. My drippings. Get my reader drippings. Oh, you had to keep your cat in your room since he has a peeing problem. Yeah, that's always makes me scared about certain cats. It's so annoying, dude. Like, because we used to babysit this one cat for a while a friend of ours figured out their living situation, and because we had two cats, like, he would just find, clothes and just go to town on them with his urine, and it's just, man, it was scary because you just like you didn't, it affects your perception of that animal, where you're just like, oh, what's he gonna do, You want my spit and bath water? I'm gonna do a combo, like a little bit of a cocktail. I'm gonna sell out. Monster Moon, you keep calling me Busta. I can't tell if it's you think I'm B Busta, or if or if that's just a term you use for people. Which is fine. You can confuse me with B Busta. We're all the same person, essentially. Me, B Busta, Lazy Corpse, we're all identical. I'm drinking my spit bath water right now. That's what I just inhaled there. Elia, you're picturing the timer as a bomb. Yeah, that bomb. I should be a lot more intense about a bomb about to blow up inside my room, but... Or you could call me B. Hey, that's up to you, my friend. Greg, I am a real person, a real human bang, a real human being. ASRM, yeah, it's my favorite. Busta Reed. Has Corpse done a face reveal? Well, he did say on his Twitter recently that if he dies, whoever has pictures of him, his close compadres, can release them to the public. I'm going to one-up him, though. I'm going to say if I die, you can have your way with my corpse. You can do whatever you want to me. I don't care at that point. So, take that, you and your picture release. I extend it further, and everybody can just kind of throw me around like a rag doll. I don't even care. I'm a sex robot, yeah. Just reconnect me to some cybernetics after I pass, and utilize me to the fullest animalistic sense you can possibly imagine. Now that is recycling. That's how we give back to the rainforest. Molly, don't pretend like you weren't thinking that exact scenario. That's a lot of people fighting for one corpse, yeah. It's gonna be like a throw me in the trash. Yeah, throw me in the trash. Just throw me in the trash. Donate my body to science. I don't trust science. I'll donate it to the papacy. I'll donate it to the clergy. They are the ones that are really going to know what to do with it. They can add my skull to one of their weird skull cathedrals. Did you ever see those? Those entire like cathedrals that are just like they take the bones of the saints and they I don't even know, like they pretty much just like super glue their skulls to the walls or their bones and stuff. And I'm like, man, this is some next level church right here. Donate my body. Hey, there's Donovan. What's up, Donovan? I haven't seen you on a stream in a while. I haven't seen you on Twitter either. It's good to see you. Yeah, you might hear me cut out once the timer goes out because there's just a huge atomic bomb going off in my room, which is going to be a little bit awkward for whenever we try to donate my body to science or the clergy. Next level chat. Welcome. I say we let his body be struck by lightning, see if he comes back to life like Frankenstein's monster. Dr. Frankenstein. This is possible. I might just come back as a moaning, groaning humanoid. Which I think my vocal cords might still get some use. And then you can just use my zombie noises for all of my future ASMR channels. I'll just transfer all my content over there from now on. Someone's going to have to be in charge of the mic and the editing and uploading. But I think YouTube can still get a lot of uses out of me once I'm gone. And if this Frankenstein's monster plan goes as planned. Light's darkness. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that too. That's crazy. You could hammer me to a cross and start a Let's Read church. Now there is definitely an option. We've got a lot of potentials here, guys, for my future. Frankenstein's monster, Jesus Christ, all sorts of good things. I like your guys' creativity. Julia with the 5 says, can't wait for the stream. You're the best. I tried to creep on you on Discord, couldn't find you. Oh, shoot. Yeah, you have to look nice and deep in there. It's actually not too difficult. You just got to go, if you guys join my Discord, once you're in there, there's a selfies channel, and there's an option. It might be a little bit not super intuitive, but it's the pinned messages, and you shouldn't have to scroll all the way up. You can just click the pinned messages, and you can see my face and all of its glorious faciness. Pinned to the way top, along with some ASMR videos that I've collaborated in priorly. Did I ever collaborate in a song or something? I remember hearing your voice in a stream. Hey, maybe. I think it's time to start the music career after some of the stuff I've done here. This is all just part of my audition. This is just audition. Oh God! Oh God! Ah! Read time. Let's Read is dead. But we found somebody else to read these Reddit stories. Ooh. Holy shit, this is loud. So let me know if the dark ambience of Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse is... Oh boy, that is loud. Interesting. Let's turn that down a bit. I think it might just be the frequencies. You know, it's those frequencies, man. Got some crazy frequencies. Huh. I don't know why that, even after I turn it down quite a bit, you'd like to hear me sing. Now that's just a special once in a blue moon experience right there. Emily, you want some broccoli cheese soup? Well, make me some. I would love to have some of that between stories. Sing us a song, Mr. Piano Man. Sing us a song tonight. Go reading stories about the ocean, and the Kraken is nowhere in sight. What about rap? Oh yeah, Let's Read's got bars on candy bars. Candied yams, bars. All of it. Also, I sing Deep Throat. Okay, I don't know. Is that a... You thinking of the, what is it, the Gregorian or the Mongolian throat singing type scenario? I actually love that kind of music. It's amazing. Alright guys, so I went through these stories here. Now, coming across, you know, oceanic experiences are sometimes difficult, especially, you know, on the subreddits, and then also through my email, the stories that I receive on there. But that's kind of created the inspiration to do these. But then the individual who is helping me with some documentaries that you guys have gotten to hear recently, they did some research into some other just like sort of experiences or, you know, sort of infamous stories that happen within the ocean. So the first two stories are from individuals that had experienced things within the ocean, and then the last 5 stories are more or less within the sort of concepts of documentary form. So they're things that did happen, but they're written more in like the documentary sort of experience, because those are kind of hard to come by. So I think this is going to I mean, there's still stories per se, but they're going to hit you in a sort of more like historical sense, which I think is pretty dope. And I'm actually really excited about this. Deadleaf Clover with the 15 says, I haven't been able to make to a stream for a bit, but I'm happy to have made it to this one. Yeah. Deadleaf, thank you so much. Deadleaf is another up-and-coming narrator, a good friend of ours, Emily. If you guys have not subscribed to her yet, please do so. Please do so. I said do. And yeah, that'd be awesome. Mornides says, do you mean like the SS Madan? Is it Madan? Because that is, yeah, the Orang Madan, which is, coincidentally enough, a game that PewDiePie is currently playing through, and it kind of looks more like an interactive movie. I didn't really get to watch much of it, but I did watch his marriage movie doc, you know, like sort of wedding video, and it looks so awesome. It was like filmed so fantastically, and it looked like a really good time. I don't know why he didn't invite me, you know what I mean? But it's whatever. It's whatever. I'll be at their honeymoon when they least expect it. Yeah, Man of Medan. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Alright. Recommended horror movie. Yeah, what can you recommend Monster Moon for horror movies? Gothic Rose with the 2 says you sing like an angel. Love ya, horror fam. Thank you, Gothic, and thank you for being an awesome, always super reliable moderator here, keeping everybody on top of different stuff. And guys, if you haven't subbed to Gothic yet, please do. I love supporting the other horror narration community. I think it's fantastic how positive everybody is towards each other, and I hope as everyone, is on the come up for different things, that we can keep that culture of positivity moving forward. My cat wants something. I think he might want to go out of the room. So I'm going to see if he does. I'll be right back. What are you doing? I honestly can't tell what my cat wants right now. He just wants attention, probably. Always wants attention at the worst possible times. Can I do Scooby-Doo? Ruh, Raggy. Not really. Not very good at impressions, to be honest. Just depends. I feel like the impressions definitely require a certain level of practice, of which I don't put a lot of effort into, man. Alright. I used to be a scuba instructor in Bali, Indonesia. Groups could book me for a casual lesson, or for like a week's worth of diving where they could earn an extra provisional diving. Or for like a week's worth of diving where they could earn an extra provisional diving lesson. Wait, license? Or lesson? Sorry, someone's going to have to be in charge of mistakes, because there's going to be quite a few tonight, probably. Or for like a week's worth of diving where they could earn a provisional diving license. So this one group books me. They're a mixed group in their early 20s, couples and friends. Good people, silver spoons galore, but I'm not one to judge. Our first activity was underwater walking. Now, I had never tried underwater walking since it was relatively new at the time, but I'm keen to try it. So we pile into a little boat and take a short trip out towards the mothership. Now, this is just a naval term for a larger boat that smaller ones like ours can work from, but we go one step further to justify this, having spray-painted one of those huge gray alien heads onto the hull. It looked awesome, and naturally the kids loved it. Underwater walking itself was similar to the time I did snuba, which is scuba plus snorkeling equals snuba, in the Caribbean, and that oxygen... Wait, what? In the Caribbean, in that the oxygen tanks float... Oh, okay. I see. Underwater walking itself was similar to the time I did snuba. Scuba plus snorkeling equals snuba. In the Caribbean, in that the oxygen tanks float up on the surface of the water instead of being on the diver's back. The other major difference to regular diving is that instead of having a scuba mask to breathe out of, we had these big old sci-fi looking helmets on. I mean, they look like they were props from that old Lost in Space show that used to be on TV. I went first, and the procedure was pretty simple. I hung onto the ladder with the majority of my body in the water. They placed a small foam rubber ring on my head to cushion the helmet, and then they finally put the helmet on. The second that it was on my body, it felt like its weight was forcing me to the bottom of the ocean. It was kind of scary because I went down pretty fast, which caused the pressure to build up quickly. I made sure to swallow and yawn a bunch to negate the effects of the pressure. And I was fine. Also, I could never really get a deep breath of air because as I breathed in, the helmet began to make a vacuum and I would have to stop to let it fill in with more air. Then 2 members of the mixed group of teens followed suit before a scuba diving man came down to be our guide. He handed all of us a piece of bread in a plastic bag which drew all of the fish to us. That was a lot of fun watching otherwise timid fish practically swarming us. There were metal guiding handrails in the ocean floor which I followed. The 2 kids followed behind me. It was very difficult to walk because the current was surprisingly strong and the helmets were quite heavy. We found it all incredibly enjoyable, though. I had been diving for years, and even to me it was a novelty. As I breathed, there was a constant loud whirring sound as the water put pressure on the... put pressure, okay. We know more about Mars than we do our ocean, that is true. That is weird that I guess maybe there's no motivation per se to get to the ocean floor unless there was some sort of drilling we were doing, which I'm not really sure. As I breathed, there were constant whirring sound. It meant that I was getting... Oh, I see, okay. Lils with the 5 says, I died when you said when you die anyone could do anything they wanted to your body. My customer was not amused. That's funny. Thank you, Lils, for the 5. Yeah. No, I actually thought of that the other day whenever I saw Corpse's Twitter post. I was like, well, you know what? That's cool and all, but I'm going to take it a step further. Local narrator donates body to subscribers. Torn to bits instantly like piranha on a chicken wing. As I breathed, there was a constant loud whirring sound as the water put pressure on the oxygen tube. It was kind of annoying, but it meant that I was getting air, which was obviously good. That's why it was so scary when the sound suddenly stopped. I was confused, but it quickly came back on after about 2 or 3 seconds and I could breathe again. It happened one more time, and again it came back on very quickly. I rationalized it by assuming that my tank had run empty and they were switching it to a different one. No big deal. I didn't understand how they would run out so quickly, but I didn't think too hard about it. It soon came back on and I could breathe, though. Though no big deal. Sorry. Sometimes I get tongue twisted and tied. Also, I wonder what the sound sounds like it. Is that too loud? I don't want to blow everyone's ears out with stuff, but just let me know if the music's... It's so weird, like when you turn it up just a little bit of a notch on YouTube, it just sounds like it multiplies the sound. I didn't understand how they would run out so quickly, but I didn't think too hard about it. It soon came back on and I could breathe, so no big deal. After about 10 minutes or so, I'm guessing, I have no idea how long we were down there, the guide points at me and indicates that he wants me to climb over the railing. I was very confused, but I did it after he made it very clear that that was what he wanted. It was kind of hard to see out any peripherals out of the mass, so it was easy to get lost. I looked back behind me to make sure that the teenagers saw where I went and didn't get lost. We made eye contact, so I assumed we were all good and then turned back around to follow the guide. He had me walking in a very small path between two corals, so I went very slowly to make sure that I didn't cut my legs up on them. It was hard, due to the strong underwater currents, my unwieldy? It's a weird word, unwieldy, even though I've seen that before. Is it unwieldy or unwieldy? Unwieldy. Difficult to carry or move because of its size, shape, or weight. Oh yeah, unwieldy. That's funny. I'm surprised I caught that, actually. Shit. Where was that? Unwieldy. Also, bungee jumping is on my bucket list. Yeah, bungee jumping would be scary, dude. I've had people that wanted to do, I've wanted to do skydiving. Anybody ever do skydiving? Mornida says, new conspiracy. We've explored our ocean, found something scary enough to make us want to explore space. Yeah, the ocean, it's definitely weird because one thing I've always found interesting is that, like, I always really enjoyed the hollow earth theory, where large portions of, like, under the earth is not necessarily some huge magma ball of, you know, heat or whatever, but could potentially be, like, you know, miles and miles and miles of just cavernous area. Some people in that conspiracy realm talk about the hollow earth and how there's a whole nother atmosphere per se, and like another sort of gaseous ball or sort of like actual sun underneath the earth. I always found that really interesting, where there's like clouds and essentially just a repeat of Earth on the interior core. Obviously, we have no idea of knowing whether or not that's has any sort of basis to it, but Stovetop Ninja with the $5 says, me. It's pretty cool, but scuba diving is scarier. Oh, yeah. I'm going to reset this music because this is like a 10-hour loop. And I actually have a lot of his stuff downloaded, so I might just play it from my computer because sometimes running YouTube stuff while streaming just like doesn't go very well. Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse. Okay, set the loop on. We are good to go. Sweet. Thank you guys for your patience here. And thank you, Stovetop Ninja, for the 5. Scuba diving. Yeah, I remember just going snorkeling was really, really claustrophobic. Even in, like, right on the shore. Because you just, you know, like, it's also really annoying because the water, like, jumps in your snorkel. And, God, that's just so annoying. You're trying to, like, blow out all the stuff, but more water from like the kind of choppy waves just keep jumping back in your snorkel. And I'm like, how is any supposed? And then you can only like see tunnel vision in certain areas, so you don't know if a shark is just rolling up on you. Limbo Master, what up? It was hard due to the strong underwater current, my unwieldy helmet, and an occasional tug by the air tube as I pulled it taut. As I reached the guide, my air stopped again. I figured it was no big deal, like the previous 2 times, and continued on. I followed him a bit, and it still didn't come on. 5 seconds with oxygen, then 10. I started to get confused. Wait, did they mean without oxygen? I followed him for a bit, but it still didn't come on. 5 seconds without oxygen, then 10. I started to get confused. Was this some kind of joke? If so, it wasn't funny at all. 15 seconds. I thought to myself, don't panic. They always tell you not to panic. But I panicked. I started taking quicker and quicker breaths, but I forced myself to stop that. Thanks to previous training, I knew that was the... Shit. Chris, you did 50 squats? Did you have weight on your back? What the hell? 50 squats. Scooty scoots. I started taking quicker. Thanks to previous training, I knew that was the worst thing I could do. I spun around to guide. Damn, dude, I suck. I suck at reading. I spun around to the guide and started pounding my fist on my chest. That was the sign for I can't breathe. He seemed to notice and started walking away. I could only hope that he was taking me to the boat. I thought maybe I should just try and shrug off the helmet and swim to the surface. I didn't know if I had enough air to make it. I didn't know if the boat was above me. I didn't want to hit my head. I didn't know if I could actually shrug it off, and I didn't want to get the bends, so I figured it wouldn't be a good idea. 30 seconds. I started to notice that I was getting less and less oxygen with each breath. Water was starting to seep into my helmet. I had to look up to breathe with the little air that I had. I grabbed hold of the guide's arms so that I wouldn't lose him, and also so that he would understand the gravity of the situation. I gave him quite the death grip. 40 seconds without oxygen. My lungs burned for air. I saw the ladder of the boat. I knew that all I had to do was make it there and I would be okay. I must have gotten some sort of adrenaline rush with the renewed hope because I almost forgot about my lack of air. I fumbled for the ladder for a few seconds. It was hard to tell distances through the helmet because it had a bit of a magnifying aspect to it, before I grabbed it and started pulling myself up. As I broke the surface, air came rushing back into my helmet and I took a nice deep breath. Breathing had never felt better. It was definitely the scariest experience of my life, and I categorically would not recommend underwater walking to anyone. Yeah, that's scary. That's always been one of my biggest fears, like burning to death, being eaten to death, or drowning to death. I feel like would be, I guess drowning would be one of the, maybe the least painful, because you just pass out, but just that period of time till like you pass out where you just don't have any breath and you're just panicking and there's no actual line of thought to it. It's just all insanity, just all fear and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that would just suck so bad. Oh yeah, Ollie Jade, the 1999 creepypasta, that was another creepypasta writer's work. So one of them did the 1999 creepypasta and then other people made copies of it, but then that original creepypasta author, I guess, was selling the story or said, "Hey Natalia, how you doing?" Natalia is the individual who does all that artwork you see in my Instagram story when it says I'm going to stream. So thank you, Natalia, for that. Yeah, so the 1999 creepypasta, I believe because of legal issues, they had reached out to me. They said, hey, even though this is a story written by someone else, the 1999 creepypasta, we're asking that you take it down because their stuff is, going to be marketed or whatever. And so whoever, the individual that wrote the other one, I guess just didn't have the ability. Like, they were continuing the story because they saw, I don't know, I think back in the day people kind of thought creepypastas were something that was available to everyone, and it kind of is, to a certain extent. But now a lot more people are utilizing their creepypasta work or their successes with different maybe no-sleep stories to kind of kickstart their writing career in other areas. So they usually attempt to maintain that, like, intellectual property, I suppose. Dude, water is the greatest thing, as long as you're not drowning in it. All right. Story 2. Being that I live on the coast of Mississippi, I have been on and around the water my entire life. I have countless stories of crazy experiences and bizarre happenings while being on the water. Most involve dealing with bad weather, such as lightning storms, water spouts, or rough seas. Those can be awesomely frightening, but the craziest things that I've seen have happened while working on fishing charter boats. But the one job that always sticks with me, and the one I would consider the biggest eye-opener, occurred back in 2010 when the Deepwater Horizon oil rig blew and began spewing oil into the Gulf of Mexico. BP, after realizing to a certain extent how vast the spill was, began a program that allowed owners of boats to register and participate in the cleanup efforts along the coastline. Those that were lucky enough to be accepted into the program sometimes took advantage of an awesome opportunity to do something good for the environment and made some serious money from it, while at the same time preventing others from getting into the program who would have actually helped. That's somewhat mentioned later, but overall is a story for another discussion. So being that the water that I had basically grown up on was being destroyed, I couldn't just sit back and not do anything. Oops. No yawning. I'm trying, dude. It's hard not to. Usually after this is when my bedtime begins. And I think I've conditioned myself to when I read to fall asleep, so that certainly doesn't make this job any easier. Aw, Lils, thank you. So being that the water that I had basically grown up on was being destroyed, I couldn't just sit back and not do anything. I went and got hazmat certified. Then through certain contacts, I first started working on a 127-foot charter boat that would normally go out to the chandelier. Oh, fuck. I now have to figure out. I knew there was probably going to be a lot of related to oceans and stuff like that. There's going to be places I have to pronounce. Oops.
Chandelier.
Chandelier. Chandelier. Oh. Chandelier. Chandelier. Yeah, I put myself to sleep with my own voice. Chandelier. I went and got hazmat certified. Then through certain contacts, I first started working on a 127-foot charter boat that would normally go out to the Chandeleur Islands located off the coast of Louisiana for several days and nights and drop skiffs in the water where clients were guided around the islands to fish. Also, I would suggest if anyone has the opportunity to go out to these islands, please do. It's absolutely incredible there, and the fishing is always superb. Anyway, back to the story. I was working on this boat for about 2 weeks before I was transferred to an offshore division that consisted of about a dozen boats. These boats were strictly personal fishing and commercial charter boats, with the largest being 57 feet and an average price of around $100,000. A couple of the other boats had to be worth well over $1 million conservatively. Our job was to leave at the crack of dawn and go out looking for oil or any marine life that may have been impacted by the spill. If we found crude oil, slicks, or anything else out of place or not normal, we'd log it, take pictures, and report it. For about a month, all we ever found were slicks. But one day, we went out about 100 miles or so, and I'll never forget the sights or smells that day. The crude oil, which we called mud because of that is exactly what it looked like, was everywhere and ridiculously thick, on average 6 inches and in some places up to 1 foot. It was like super thick putty, and to be honest is actually really hard to describe. To put this into perspective though, if you've ever been mud riding or seen a truck get stuck in the mud, that's exactly what it was like to these boats, but out on the water and a lot worse. Over time, it destroyed the boat's hulls and caused significant damage to pretty much whatever it touched. We were the first group to find the crude and report it coming in that close to the shore. Also during this time, we found a life jacket belonging to one of the poor guys who actually worked on the oil rig when it blew. Words honestly can't describe what that was like. It was a haunting moment to say the least. So, we eventually get back to shore, and that's when things started to change. The operation had now shifted to, how are we going to clean this up? And what are we going to do with it? It wasn't until this point when we all realized how serious this was, not only for the coastline, but for the environment as a whole. The next morning at the dock, we noticed that pallets of skimmers and absorbent materials had been dropped off. We were to use the skimmers to round up as much crude as we could, tie off the skimmers into a circle, and place the boom together with the crude inside. That would then be brought to the decontamination stations by another division who was assigned that job. A little reminder, our job originally was to just spot, find, take pictures, and report back, not necessarily handle the oil if at all possible. But it got to the point where instead of myself being the only one who could handle the crude on my boat, everyone else working the boats eventually ended up in protective suits handling this toxic, sludgy substance in 100+ degree temperatures for 12 hours a day. A little side note, each boat had to have at least one hazmat certified person on board at all times who was supposed to be the only person handling the crude. Also, only 4 people were allowed to work on each boat in our division. We also ended up getting stranded twice by the shrimp boats, who decided to call it a day, leaving us with no way to move the crude while also not allowing us to leave because we couldn't just leave the rounded up crude unattended. It was absolutely miserable. Nobody could have ever imagined what we were getting into. BP themselves had no idea what they were getting into, and their claims of being prepared. BP themselves had no idea what they were getting into, and their claims of being prepared were completely overshadowed by the fact that they truly did not know how to run and contain an operation of this magnitude day in and day out. This became a day-to-day challenge up until the point when my shady boss got caught being greedy, charging BP for every miscellaneous thing he bought, which caused all of his boats to be shut down. During this time, both the employer and employees were making some serious money. What ruined it were the greedy jerks who just couldn't get enough. This, in turn, caused less boats that were actually doing it for the right reasons from being able to make a change out on the water. In total, we worked a little over 3 months, going out every day and seeing schools of dead fish, dead sea turtles, was disheartening to say the least. Although it was one of the most awful experiences of my life, I do feel like we made a difference out there, even if it was just a little. On one of our last trips, we were about 20 or so miles out past the barrier islands when we could see from a distance what looked like the water boiling and had a red, orange, and yellow color to it. When we got close, we realized it was a school of thousands of redfish and I don't know what that is. Jack Creval. Did anyone here live out near the BP spills or anything like that along the coast? Or experienced that?
Crevelli.
Crevelli? Any of several caringid fishes? Crevelli. Jack Crevelli. Interesting. That sounds like a cool pirate name. Original Asherella with the 2 says $2 to make you holla holla. Holla holla. Hey. Thank you, Asherella. Thank you, Ash. Crivelli. Okay, Jack Crivelli. When we got close, we realized it was a school of thousands of redfish in Jack Crivelli that stretched as far as we could see, and was about 100 or so yards wide. Being in the middle of that, surrounded by these fish, just cannot be described with words. It was incredible, and that was the one moment that gave us hope that we were... It was incredible, and that was the one moment that gave us hope that what we were doing was not a waste, and that we were in fact doing something worthwhile. Still to this day, it is the most incredible thing I'd ever seen on the water aside from the oil spill itself. Lastly, just to throw this out there are still tons of oil out in the Gulf regardless of what people say. It's just buried and on the seafloor due to the so-called dispersants. It's just buried and on the seafloor due to the so-called dispersants that BP claimed would break the oil up. It still can be found on the island's beaches and marshes. The marine... I suck. The marine life is just now getting back to normal again in the past 2 years, and it's only going to get better as long as some nonsense like this doesn't happen again. Shit. I don't know why I get so tongue-twisted sometimes. Your 8-month-old daughter likes my voice. Oh, that's cute. I have heard about people saying, like, their babies will cry, and then they'll sit them in front of, like, their TV or computer or something, and they'll go right to sleep. You're gonna rip my vocal cords out when I die. You can have them. Just make sure you... And then you can just, like, put them up to your lips and talk into them, and you can sound just like me. Alright, so here's some of the... So these next, like, 5 posts are kind of, like, posts that you would experience from, like, our history. As a lot of them were kind of consulted from authors there. So, yeah. It'll be more like a documentary experience, for these next 5 ones, but I figure those first 2 are good because they're kind of like first-hand experiences, and it's hard to come across like stories that people have on the ocean per se. Excuse me. So I think these next ones will be fun. Lila, you like giving yourself mohawks in the shower? I think that's perfectly acceptable and normal. Also, guys, I don't know if it matters or not, if it even helps, but from what I hear it does. If you click that like button, it lets YouTube know that, hey, people are into this stram, and then they will naturally, through their fantastic, well thought out, amazing algorithm they have, it will let more people know that I am streaming, and more people can come join you in the Buttersock cult. Lila, you like my burps. You know you do. They're mohawk burps. I burp into the mohawk, and it keeps it in place. Your father was skylifted from his boat due to an accident. That is scary. That would be really intense. Okay. So this is the Steve Callahan story. Once again, there's already a word that I don't know how to pronounce, and I don't want to get shit on for not pronouncing it right.
Penzance.
Alright, whatever. We'll go with that. Penzance in England. In 1981, American mariner Stephen Callahan was taking part in a single-handed sailing race from Penzance in England to the Caribbean island nation of Antigua. Shite. I didn't even notice this word down here. Sometimes the Wikipedia pages actually have the pronunciation, which is... It's like... I never know how to, like... They'll have it written Antigua. Oh, Antigua. Okay, sweet. So that was way easier than how they had it, so... Antigua. Antigua. Let's see if that matches up on what Merriam-Webster.
Antigua.
Oh, Antigua. Not Antigua. Or just Alright. Penzance. Penny Pants. Like the Pirates of Penzance? I guess so. These probably have some correlation to pirates. Yahar! In 1981, American mariner Stephen Callahan was taking part in a single-handed sailing race from Penzance in England to the Caribbean island nation of Antigua. Having studied as a naval architect, Callahan was an expert in the design and construction of all kinds of seaborne vessels, and had spent most of his life living on board racing and cruising ships. Yet not long into the race, bad luck and even worse weather had damaged or sunk many of the participants' boats, including Callahan's own self-designed Napoleon Solo. To his dismay, he was forced to abandon the race. But Callahan was not a quitter, not by any stretch of the imagination. He was determined to complete the voyage, even if the prize was no more than his own sense of satisfaction. And so, after making the necessary repairs to Napoleon Solo, he continued down the coast of Spain and Portugal and out into the Atlantic towards the Canary Islands. Several days later, Callahan found himself sailing in gale-force winds that had waves crashing over his small one-man boat. The storm continued into the night, with Callahan fighting to keep the vessel afloat. Suddenly, among the darkness and howling winds of the mid-Atlantic, something huge smashed into the side of the Napoleon Solo. The boat rocked into the ocean, a huge hole in a lower compartment causing the boat to fill with seawater. Callahan fought to keep his beloved boat from sinking, but it was no good. The small craft was overwhelmed by the crashing waves and strong winds. Callahan was forced to abandon ship, alone. When dawn broke, Callahan found himself drifting. He was drifting. Baka Boy 2000 with the 20 says, finish drinking with the boys and then to have a live stream. What a great day. Thank you. I hope your day has been going well. Thank you, Baka Boy. I hope you had fun with the boys. Honestly, it's weird looking back on my, group of friends. And my closest group of guy friends, I don't feel like we ever had many opportunities to just go drink with one another. Because we were all going to different schools and stuff like that, and whenever we were back, it was for whatever reason, we just never went too hard in that direction during the heyday. So yeah, that's awesome. You got to do that. That sounds like a fun night. And thank you for the 20. That's huge. Thank you. When dawn broke, Callahan found himself drifting on the Atlantic in a small lifeboat. But he was determined to survive the disaster. Just before the Napoleon Solo had sank into the dark depths of the ocean, Callahan had made several trips back onto the boat to secure several pieces of crucial survival equipment, including a sleeping bag, emergency rations, a small spear gun, and a pair of solar stills that would produce roughly a pint of clean drinking water per day. Being the experienced sailor that he was, Callahan had determined that his raft was drifting steadily westward due to ocean currents and trade winds. Trade winds being the pattern of surface winds that have taken ships from Europe to the Americas for centuries. If he stayed alive, he knew he would eventually drift back into the realms of civilization, but staying alive would be no small feat. It wasn't long before Callahan had exhausted the meager food rations he had managed to salvage from Napoleon Solo. He couldn't find an alternate source of food. He would slowly and painfully die of starvation, alone and afraid in the open waters. But Callahan had no intention of dying in such a hideous manner. He took the spear gun that he had managed to grab from his sunken vessel and set to work. An interesting point about Flotsam... Wait, what is that? Patriots are on. Uh-oh, Colin, are you a Pats fan? Are you a sports ball fan? I like sports. Can I get a heck yeah? Did you ever see that video? Churdleys. You guys should watch Churdley videos. They're pretty funny. I like sports. Can I get a heck yeah? Saturdays are for the boys. Alright, so what was this weird word that I saw? Spear gun, drifting, no, okay. Flotsam. What the fuck is flotsam? What the fuck is flotsam? Lois?
Flotsam.
Shit, the wreckage of a ship or its cargo found floating on or washed up by the sea. Flotsam. Guys, you were going to be spelling bee champs. I never really understood, like, whenever those spelling people ask, can you use it in a sentence kind of thing? Maybe I'm missing the technique or whatever, but like, if you had to use flotsam, so if someone said spell flotsam, and you know, they asked you how to spell it, like, why would asking how to use it in a sentence ever help you? Because, like, you imagine, like, that's the most unique word, and I don't really think there's any other word like flotsam that would be used in a sentence for it to give you any sort of contextual knowledge. But what's jetsam? What's jetsam? You guys keep saying jetsam. I don't really know. Is there a man named Jet Sam? They're just buying time. That's what I was saying. That's what I think. All right. An interesting point about flotsam that drifts into the open ocean is that they often become small ecosystems in their own right. Barnacles that become attached to floating debris and the microscopic sea life they foster will in turn attract surface-feeding fish such as mahi-mahi or triggerfish. It wasn't long before Callahan found himself surrounded by an evolving ecosystem that would provide him with just enough food to stay alive. Callahan must have been delighted to discover that feeding himself was much easier than he had first anticipated. Entire schools of fish presented themselves to be speared, killed, and eaten as a valuable resource of protein. But what is yeet? Can you use yeet in a sentence? But wherever there are smaller fish, larger fish are of... what? God. Sorry, dodes. Flotsam and jetsam is a figure of speech meaning like useless stuff. Ah, I've never heard that figurative speech before. Like, I'ma yeet this empty can of soda, I yeeted that drink. Just imagine the judge saying that. Like, I'ma yeet this empty can of soda. Oh, thank you. Y-E-E-T? Yeet? That is correct. But wherever there are smaller fish, larger fish are inevitably drawn. Callahan awoke one day to hear a gentle lapping among the calm waters around him. He emerged from the canvas shelter of his life raft, expecting to see more of the mahi-mahi fish that were sustaining him so effectively. But it was something else. Something which made his blood run. Circling the boat at almost perfect intervals were 3 large dorsal fins. Sharks were circling the life raft. They could smell him. As the sharks grew... God damn it. As the sharks drew closer, Callahan could hear their sandpaper skin scratching against the thin nylon sides of the lifeboat. The noise must have been terrifying to him, a stark reminder that there were things in the ocean that were actively seeking to consume him, to end his life and render all his efforts pointless. What's more, there was every chance that the sharks would lose patience, attack the raft, and cause irreparable damage to the only thing that was truly keeping Callahan alive. He would have to go on the offensive. Taking the spear gun in hand, Callahan must have been shaking with terror as he leaned over the side of the lifeboat and began jabbing at the circling sharks with the sharp point of the spear. But sharks are tough, and his spear gun was poorly made. It wasn't long before the rubber propulsion band and jagged spear tip had broken off, rendering the spear gun useless. But Callahan simply lashed a knife to the shaft of the broken spear and carried on his brave defense of his lifeboat. Yet, it wasn't the sharks that would become the biggest threat to Callahan's life, the largest of which would come from his own survival needs. On the 44th day, drifting aboard his lifeboat, Callahan was fishing using his improvised spear when he caught a large mahi-mahi fish. But as it wildly flailed during its dying movements, the mahi-mahi caused the spear shaft to rip into the raft's bottom tubes, seriously compromising the lifeboat's buoyancy. Despite his best efforts, the hole wouldn't stay patched. In his endeavors to patch the boat up, Callahan often had to reach under the lifeboat itself, working with his arms underwater to reach repairs. This caused the sharks to return. Callahan was forced to balance defending his lifeboat with the essential repairs it required. The stress was too much for him, and he snapped. By his own admission, he descended into a fit of rage and grief, unable to accept that he would be torn apart in the open waters of the Atlantic by sharks that had been tracking him for weeks. But then it hit him. A small plastic fork in a Boy Scout mess kit he had managed to salvage could be stuffed into the nylon near the tear in the raft, then bent inward to seal the tear to secure the vessel. Too weak to attempt the idea at the time, Callahan tried for what little sleep he could manage in such a stressful situation, resounding himself to try it in the morning. It worked. It was the victory of a lifetime. He had come back from the brink of insanity and death to ensure that he would survive for that much longer. That was, until the solar stills on the life raft began to falter. Over the course of a few days, Callahan watched in horror as the one thing that kept him from dying of dehydration began to pack up and cease to function. By that time, he had only 3 small cans of fresh, purified water. His body and mind were shutting down. He began to hallucinate, feeling as if though all those people lost at sea were surrounding him, calling him to join them. He simply had no more fight left in him. Then, after 76 full says, whoops. Silky shark do 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 do. Caught at sea do 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 do. Insanity do 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 do. Then, after 76 full days lost at sea, Callahan saw a small fishing vessel on the horizon. As it grew larger and larger, he deduced it was headed right towards him, attracted by the seabirds that circled over his lifeboat. The fish guts he had thrown back into the sea after successful catches has caused the small ecosystem around his lifeboat to grow exponentially, now including a small collection of whaling galls. Where there are seabirds, there are fish, and where there are fish, there are fishermen. As the fishing boat pulled up alongside the raft, they must have been amazed to see the skeletal figure of Steve Callahan lying in half dead. What the hell? As the fishing boat pulled up alongside the raft, they must have been amazed to see the skeletal figure of Steve Callahan lying half dead before their eyes. The men were from Guadalupe. Callahan had made it to the Caribbean, just as he predicted. By the time the fishermen reached rescue, is it Guadalupe? Did I say that right? Just want to make sure that I done did that right. Guadalupe.
Guadeloupe.
Oh, Guadeloupe. Just loop. I guess Guadalupe almost sounds like a dude's name. The men were from Guadeloupe. Callahan had made it to the Caribbean, just as he predicted. By the time the fishermen reached and rescued him from certain death, Callahan had lost a third of his body weight. He was so emaciated that it took 6 weeks before he could walk properly again. Bizarrely, he claimed he doesn't regret his 76 days spent alone in that lifeboat, drifting in the Atlantic Ocean. In fact, Callahan had been quoted as saying that he felt enlightened by what he went through, that it changed him for the better. In fact, he once described the night sky, unpolluted by the bright lights of big cities, as being a view of heaven from a seat in hell. That's pretty cool. Yeah, y'all, smash that like button. Smash the shit out of it. LSD, anyone? I just need a place to cook. I'm confused. What are you cooking? Ramen noodles? My boat is sinking. It was Lupe. Fuck. Well, why did it say that then?
Guadeloupe.
Guadeloupe. Wikipedia. Let's see.
Guadeloupe.
Yeah, Guadeloupe. Alright, yeah, it's just Guadeloupe. I think Guadalupe is like a name or something like that, or a different place. Or maybe that's how we pronounce it in the, I don't know, maybe more. No E pronounced at the end. Okay, just Guadeloupe. Where do we hear Guadalupe at? Is that some sort of like, type of avocado, or what's going on? I like these stories, these sort of historical stories, though. These are, honestly, I mean, way more interesting than, like, I got on my cruise boat and this guy, like, handed me a beer and diarrhea. Like, I got super seasick. I like sharks. I like almost getting eaten by sharks and losing your sanity much more. Don't listen to the computer. I do believe, well, this one from Wikipedia is actually recorded by somebody.
Guadeloupe.
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 Guadeloupe. Alright. Now this one's going to be weird. This guy's, so, it's a Saturday morning, affluent Australia suburban, Brighton. First off, is that how you say Brighton? Anybody from Aussie land? Is it just Brighton, Brighton? Did I watch Shark Week? I didn't watch Shark Week. I missed it. I feel like Shark Week always sneaks up on me, and I can never just get on board. I need to just have it constantly on in the background so I don't miss anything. You were taking mushrooms while listening to these stories? If that's the case, you might as well just have lived them. I started to sound like Dylan. Dylan is chillin' for a second. Dylan is chillin'. The last thing you want to see is your lifeboat sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Face to face with the coral reef shark. I love Dylan. He's so funny. All right. So this next one is Brighton, and then his name is Jared Canazay. Let's see. Coral Reef. Cheyenne Dory Bob with the 2 buckaroonies. It's taco, 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 taco. We have to sacrifice the tacos to appease them.
Conazay.
Conazay. I hate pronouncing stuff wrong and then What if I did a definitional search? Conazay. Mandela effect stories. How would you define the Mandela effect? And don't use the Bernstein Bears example, because that's the worst example they could ever give for that. I hate when they use that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You thought it was Bernstein Bears, but it's actually Bromstein Snares. No. No. My childhood. My childhood. Kanye West. I'm just going to say Conazay. We got to move on. Kanye. Jared Kanye is a tacos for the no pants party. Oh my god. 15 songs you shouldn't make. Just enter a foot lettuce note apologize in advance incorrectly spelled words. Just in the beginning. Attention. All these words are pronounced wrong. Whoa, 2012 CERN shifted us into another dimension. Dale, what are you talking about, man? You better explain yourself. It is Saturday morning in the affluent Australian suburb of Brighton, just over 5 miles from Melbourne. Melbourne. Yes, it is Melbourne. I do recall that because I've been corrected 1 trillion times for that one. Melbourne. Let's see, definite. Melbourne.
Melbourne.
No, that's wrong, you dumb bitch. Melbourne. Welcome to Melbourne. Melbourne. It's like a Mel and a bun. Just over 5 miles from Melbourne city centre. Brighton is well known for its Dendy Street beach, the location of 82 colourful beach boxes. 16-year-old Sam Cazanet has been playing soccer and his feet are sore, so he decides to take a walk down to the beach to soothe his aching feet. He spends half an hour in the cooling... He spends half an hour in the cooling, shallow waters, listening to music and feeling the pain in his swollen feet slowly ebb away. But as he wades out of the water to retrieve his sandals, he feels a strange sensation on his feet and ankles, almost like pins and needles. When he looks down, he sees they are covered in blood, which drips onto the golden Australian sand. Sam walks back into the ocean, hoping to wash away the blood and allow the salt water to disinfect the wound, but on his return, he finds his legs will not stop bleeding. His father, Jared Cazanet, rushed... Wait, isn't he Jared? Are they both Jared Cazanet? Oh no, dude. Wait, what the fuck? Something very weird happened here. I think I said Jared Brighton, 16-year-old Sam Cazanet. I didn't say Jared earlier, did I? I don't know. I think I said Sam. Melbourne Sam. He drove himself. Now I'm confused. Do you guys remember if I said Jared Cazanet earlier or Sam Cazanet? Because I mean, you think I would have just read what was right in front of me, but for some reason I don't know. All right. His father, Jared Cazanet, rushed him to the nearby Dane-dong. That's a funny name, Dane-dong. But you never know, it's Australia, so they're going to pronounce it weird. Dane-dong. Welcome to Dane-dong, Victoria. Oh, Dandon. Oh, why the hell did they spell that wrong? Dandenong. I think maybe that was a spell check or something. Dandenong. One second. Okay, so that makes sense. Shit. Dude, trying to find the pronunciation of half these places is so painful. The accent was everything you hate in life. All combined. Is there a YouTube video? Sometimes I have to do that because I have to go to a YouTube video. Anybody know how to say what the freak? Cultural threads. Oh my god. It's a non-voiceover video about Dandenong. Or Dandy-dong, or... Does any Australians out there know how to say this frickin' place? This frickin' dickin'... Visit Greater Dandenong. Alright, here we go. This one's gonna have a voiceover. Oh, here we go.
Well, you can do things you can't do elsewhere.
What the fuck? Alright. 1 second, guys. Eventually this stupid video is gonna say something useful. It's so funny, every time they advertise like any sort of sightseeing place, they always have people like doing wakeboarding, backflips, and skydiving. And it's like, who would ever on their vacation just be like, oh, let me go do backflips and skydive? Seems pretty chill.
You'll never guess where. Beautiful.
If you eventually tell us. Wow. It legit didn't tell us. Oh my god. Fucking hell, dude. It literally just wrote it on the screen because they don't even know how to pronounce their stupid... I'm going to say Candy Dong, yeah. This is so embarrassing. Alright, here we go, music. This is what... Anybody know? Nobody know? It's fine. Dandenong Rainforest. Now I'm just interested in all this nonsense. Fuck it. I'm just gonna say Dandenong, because, like, what else is there to do? Right? Dandenong? Yeah. His father, Jared Cazanet, rushed him to the nearby Dandenong Hospital. As Sam sat patiently in the hospital waiting room, he was... Jesus Christ. I'm pronouncing it correctly. Thank you. Thank you. As Sam sat patiently in the hospital waiting room he was driven to, blood continued to pool beneath his feet from the thousands of tiny pinprick wounds that dotted his legs and feet. To his family's horror, no one at the hospital could identify exactly what was the issue. Hospital staff contacted numerous toxicity and marine experts throughout the city of Melbourne, but none of them could shed any light on the nature of Sam's injuries. However, it is not just sharks that hunger for flesh in the waters around Australia, and one solid suggestion was made: sea lice. Known by their Latin name as, oh, holy Christ, why do I have to pronounce the Latin name? Lycianacid amphipods. Lycianacid. Known by their Latin name as Lycianacid amphipods, sea lice are marine parasites that feed on the mucus, epidermal tissue, and blood of host marine fish. They are somewhat related to shrimp and prawns, but are smaller in size, ranging from 6 to 13 millimeters. They are not venomous, and their bites... Yeah, Sam got the lice, bro. They are not venomous, and their bites do not cause any lasting damage. Sam's injuries were consistent with those made by the small mite-like creatures when devouring organic tissue, but marine experts claimed that there was no way that such tiny organisms were responsible for such extensive tissue damage. Sam's father had an idea. That same day, he took a net down to the section of beach where Sam had suffered his mysterious wounds. In that net, he placed some slices of beefsteak. He lowered the thing into the water and waited. When he pulled the net out, he discovered something horrifying. Hundreds of tiny crustaceans were clinging to the raw meat, and they weren't just devouring the flesh. They were draining the raw steak of its blood. The marine experts were wrong. It was indeed sea lice that had attacked. Sea scabies. They were wrong. The marine experts. The marine experts were wrong. It was indeed sea lice that had attacked Sam's feet and legs, and they had done so in their thousands. Sam's father recorded video footage of the lice devouring the slices of steak and took it straight to the hospital where his son was retrieving Shit, sorry. Everything's like a tongue twister for my mouth today. It's stupid. Okay. Okay, here we go. Yar. Sam's father recorded the video footage of the lice devouring the slices of steak and took it straight to the hospital where his son was receiving treatment. But the details surrounding the manner in which these organisms feed is simply terrifying. In the creature's infancy, sea lice are not aggressive and produce food via a process that occurs inside the creature's own body. But once it finds a victim, oh my god, he wrote orgasm. That's pretty funny. I wonder if he did that on purpose. That's hilarious. The orgasm. But once it finds a victim, the organism begins to grow and change as it accesses a valuable source of protein, its victim's flesh. Adult sea lice, especially females, are aggressive feeders, and in some cases feeding on blood. Adult sea lice, especially females, are aggressive feeders, and in some cases feeding on blood in addition to tissue and mucus. This explains why the injuries to Sam's ankles and feet were so incredibly severe. The wounds stunned marine biologist Dr. Walker Smith. It's impossible he disturbed a feeding group, but they are generally not out there waiting to attack like piranhas. But Jeff Weir, the executive director of the Australian Dolphin Research Institute, said he too had suffered a similar experience. Fuck, dude. But Jeff Weir, the executive director of the Australian Dolphin Research Institute, said he too had suffered a similar experience. The marine biologist had taken part in a night dive and was taking pictures under a nearby pier when he found his forehead and cheeks were bleeding profusely when he surfaced. But he frankly admitted that Sam's case was the worst that he had seen in his entire career. These are very important little critters that live in the water, just like garden slaters in the garden that clean up the breakdown debris. Oh my god. Orgasm. Alright, Jesus Christ. These are very important little critters that live in the water. Just like garden slaters in the garden that clean up the breaking down debris. These things are a really important part of the ecosystem. It's a bit annoying for the young lad. He must have been there for quite a while and not realizing he's getting nipped away. It's not life-threatening, but it's a great tale to tell. But before you go, you're safe if you don't live down under. You might want to hear this. Wait. What is this? Oh, before you go. But before you go thinking you're safe if you don't live down under, you might want to hear this. A series of itchy experiences down in the Virginian beach area had caused a panic among frightened locals and tourists alike over a so-called sea lice. Beachgoers posted numerous social media updates over the course of a week describing tiny bites and itching in bathing suits and all over their arms and legs. Many rushed from water to the closest shower but were horrified to report that the itching lasted longer. Many rushed to local hospitals, terrified they were contracting something horrible, some unknown disease. But thankfully the tiny creatures responsible for the itching, commonly referred to as sea lice, aren't actually lice at all. They're actually blue crab larvae. One day, They're actually blue crab larvae. One day destined to grow fat and large, potentially winding up on a plate at your favorite crab feast. The Virginia Aquarium's Vice President of Education, Christopher Witherspoon, tells us the so-called sea lice are a larval form of the blue crab called the megalops. It looks like an alien lobster and its pincers are just big enough to irritate people's skin and maybe cause a rash, he explained. Getting sea lice in your bathing suit is uncomfortable but harmless. Encounters with the larvae are Encounters with the larvae are expected around summertime, mainly due to the timing of the blue crab's life cycle. In late spring, eggs hatch at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay before surface currents push the tiny I can't read it all right now, dude. Fucking God. Too many big words for my brain. Larvae, Louvre, the Louvre. Why are we... I don't even understand this. It looks... Encounters with the larvae are expected... How do you actually say this stupid word? The fuck?
Larva.
Oh, larva. I thought it was like the plural or some shit. Encounters with the larva are expected around summertime, mainly due to the timing of the blue crab's life cycle. In late spring, eggs hatch at the mouth of the Chesapeake. I suck, dude. I just can't, like, keep my mouth from fucking tripping over itself. In late spring, eggs hatch at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay before surface currents push the tiny It's like a tongue twister. It's tiny larva. Say that 10 times. Tiny larva, tiny larva. Push the tiny larva. Fucking God. In late spring, eggs hatch at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay before surface currents push the tiny larva out. Oh my God. In late spring, eggs hatch at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay before surface currents push the tarny. I keep saying tarny, dude. What the fuck? What the fuck? In late spring, eggs hatch at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay before surface currents push the tiny larvae out into the ocean, where they transform into megalopi. Those in turn sink to the bottom of the ocean and ride bottom currents back onto the bay, where they need to be to... What the fuck? Why am I messing up so many times? Those in turn sink to the bottom of the ocean and ride bottom currents back into the bay, where they need to be to develop into young crabs. Megalopi are not to be confused with sand fleas, tiny crustaceans that live in the beach sand and also make vacationers itchy. Witherspoon says we should welcome crab larvae back to the bay, not fear them. He went on to explain that it takes millions upon millions of larvae for enough to survive the journey and avoid predators for us to have adult blue crabs to harvest. Without megalopy appearing along shores and in the bay each summer, there would be no blue crabs here. Sam Cazenet's encounter with the flesh-eating parasites may have been an incredibly rare occurrence, but it illustrates just how little we know about what lurks beneath the waves. How we well and truly roll the dice when venturing into unknown waters. How the planet's oceans are just as brutal and nightmarish as the densest jungles or driest deserts. Fuck, man, that story, like, I mean, that was fine, but, like, oh, man, I feel like people are going to get bored hearing about, like, half of the story was just about crabs. Venikins with the 5 says, hi, Joel, hope all is well. You know me, I need my Pradeep status update, and I have a QQ. Would Pradeep Kidde save you from the horror of the sea? Dude, he would not. He would instantaneously panic and hide in some sort of, probably, like a closet of sorts in some other sailor's bag. Currently, it's so funny when I look back and he's just like laying sprawled out like on his back with his like legs stretched as far as they possibly can go. I don't know why that's like his go-to position, but it's fun because then I can come up and rub his belly. Yeah, we're almost at 600 viewers, guys. Welcome to those who are new to the stream. You are more than welcome to make fun of me for all my mistakes. We're already, I don't know how many we're up to by this point, but we're up to 48. All right. Yeah, it's funny that crabs would start that small, that they just like make you bleed and bleed. Pretty gross. Yeah, he loves belly rubs, honestly. He loves all sorts of attention. I know some people talk about their cats being mean, but I was always very aggressively loving with Pradeep, to the point where he has given up all resistance to my lovin's. He is mine now. Baby, little boy. Oh my goodness. All right. This next one, you guys actually might be familiar with it. It's called The Sinking of the Indianapolis. You feeling Joel's Crab Shack? I want to welcome everybody to my Crab Shack. Excuse me. Morty, we got to get to my Crab Shack. Pretty. We got to go. We got to get the crabs. I just got tacoed. Do sea crabs require the special shampoo? They might. Maybe that's all they needed the whole time, because I'm sure there's something similar. Meow. Your cat ripped through your window screen. That's pretty funny. Alright, so. The most deadly shark attack in recorded history began on July 30th, 1945. The USS Indianapolis, a Portland-class heavy cruiser of the United States Navy, was taking part in a top-secret mission of the utmost importance. It was tasked with carrying enriched uranium to the island of Tinian? What the fuck is Tinian? What the fuck is Tinian? Tinian. Wait. Tinian. Let's see what definition says. Free dictionary. Turn it down a tad. There's this one app I got that allows you to turn down specific tabs within Google Chrome, and it's pretty nice.
Tinian.
Tinian. Okay, Tinian. It was tasked with carrying enriched uranium to the island of Tinian in the South Pacific, along with other parts required for the assembly of the world's first deployable atomic bomb. As history shows, the crew of the Indianapolis were successful in their mission, completing the delivery in record speeds that are unbroken even by modern naval vessels. However, as they sailed back towards, don't know that word either, sweet, late, Lady? Hey, lady.
Lady.
Lady, okay, cool. Hey, lady. However, as they sailed back towards Leyte for training before the invasion of Okinawa, tragedy struck. Just after midnight on July 30th, the Indianapolis was spotted by Japanese submarines. Without any escorts to defend her, the Indianapolis was a prime target, and the Japanese closed in for the kill. The Indianapolis did not have sonar to detect submarines. They were completely unaware of the danger in which they found themselves. At exactly 15 after midnight, 2 Type 95 torpedoes smashed into the right-hand side of the vessel, instantly killing dozens of American sailors and causing obscene amounts of damage to the ship. Oh my god, okay. Obscene amounts of damage. At exactly 15 past midnight, 2 Type 95 torpedoes smashed into the right-hand side of the vessel, instantly killing dozens of American sailors and causing obscene amounts of damage to the ship's structure. It took just 12 minutes of panic and terror for the ship to sink completely, taking down over 300 of the crew along with her. The surviving crew members, lacking life jackets and lifeboats, were set adrift among the waves in almost complete darkness. Many thought the worst was over, but their nightmare had only just begun. Naturally, the sailors floating among the debris were expecting to be rescued in the matter of shit. Samantha says, with $3, says, we need per deep plushies. Also, how are you? I'm doing great. I'm just reading some stories. We're a little over 600 people now, which is pretty baller. And yes, I would very much like a little per deep Beanie Baby or something like that. I'm sure they've got to have Black Cat everything. Of course, he does have 7 lucky white hairs on his chest. You're watching torpedo racing? Do they race torpedoes? Naturally, the sailors floating among the debris were expecting to be rescued in a matter of hours, days at most. But the horrible fact was that no one was coming to their rescue. Despite sending several emergency signals before the ship went down, the Navy had somehow lost track of the Indianapolis. Nothing was made of the fact that the ship failed to arrive at Leyte, and many of the emergency messages that were received by nearby ships and naval bases were completely ignored. Declassified records later showed that one such commander in the Philippines was drunk and had told his staff not to disturb him. Another wrongly assumed the SOS calls were some kind of Japanese trap. The roughly 900 men who had actually survived the torpedo attack were now exposed to a new, perhaps even deadlier danger. It was dawn when the survivors saw the first sharks in the waters around them. The pure carnage and chaos of the sinking had attracted hundreds of oceanic white tips and tiger sharks from miles around. Some were apparently as large as 15 foot long. It must have been absolutely terrifying for the survivors, seeing huge dorsal fins emerging from the water as the predators began to surround them, circling, picking out the weakest links, those too weak to struggle. At first, the sharks focused on the dead bodies floating on the water. Many men had died. Wait, what? Many men had died from exposure, salt poisoning, or thirst, and it was those corpses that provided the easiest meals for the curses. Okay, we going in hot. Many men had died from exposure, salt poisoning, or thirst, and it was these corpses that provided the easiest meals for the circling sharks. But soon the lifeless bodies among the survivors had been completely devoured by the hungry predators. It wasn't long before they turned their attentions towards the living. The survivors later reported that they were losing at least 3 or 4 men to the sharks every single day. At some point they counted 20 to 30 sharks in the water, their dorsal fins breaking the waves to form an almost impenetrable barrier around the surviving sailors. The sharks would often swim towards the survivors, bumping into them to test for signs of life. The sailors never knew exactly when the attacks would come, and this took a serious toll on their sanity. Men would kick and pound the water, screaming bloody murder in an attempt to deter the sharks from attacking. But this only served to attract more and more of the fishy fiends, as it mimicked the thrashing of a wounded sea creature that served as a natural dinner bell. Oh my lordy. Look who's 40. Alright. Where am I? Where am I? I blacked out, sorry guys. But only attracted, mimic the thrashing. But this only served to attract more and more of the fishy fiends, as it mimicked the thrashing of a wounded sea creature that served as a natural dinner bell for the hungry beasts. Every so often a shark would lose patience and strike without mercy, rushing up from the briny depths to drag down a screaming survivor. Imagine it, hearing the man next to you let out an ear-splitting I don't know, I don't normally, flump up this much. Usually I feel like I get a pretty good rhythm going, but every word has just been so, la, la 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 la, I can't speak. Imagine it, hearing the man next to you let out an ear-splitting, blood-curdling scream before disappearing beneath the waves, never to be seen again. Some survivors recalled that the elements were perhaps just as deadly as the circling sharks. During the scorching heat of the daytime, men would pray for darkness, their faces blistering as the harsh Pacific sun beat down upon them, while at night, the water grew so cold that their teeth would chatter as hypothermia set in. Some would kick their legs and thrash their arms in futile attempts to keep warm, but again, this only mimicked the death throes of a wounded sea creature, making them a target for the circling sharks. Hold on, my cat's licking like random plastic bags. 1 second. Come on. I think we both conditioned each other to, me and the cat, we have a little bit of a symbiotic relationship going where he knows exactly how to get my attention, not just rubbing into my leg, but he'll go up to my computer chair that I don't sit in anymore and start scratching it to let me know he wants to leave. And then also he'll just go up to a random plastic bag that I have over there, an old shopping bag, and just start licking it. Which is like a weird thing that he likes to do. I don't know why he likes... Because he hates whenever plastic bags are when you're airing out a trash bag to put it inside a big trash bin. That freaks him out. That's like his autistic trigger. He just goes insane. But then he'll sit there and lick the bags as if though he has some sort of fetish for them. It's strange. It's funny. Every so often a shark would lose patience. Imagine it, Hearing the man next to you let out an ear-splitting, blood-curdling scream before disappearing beneath the waves, never to be seen again. Some survivors recalled that the elements were perhaps just as deadly as the circling sharks. During the scorching heat of the daytime, men would pray for darkness, their faces blistering as the harsh Pacific sun beat down upon them, while at night, the water grew so cold that their teeth would chatter as hypothermia set in. Some would kick their legs and thrash their arms in futile attempts to keep warm, but again, this only mimicked the death throes of a wounded sea creature, making them a target for the circling sharks. As the floating sailors fought to survive, many of them succumbed to the horror of their experiences and began to lose their minds. Some men would even begin to hallucinate, seeing islands that weren't there or claiming that they had heard rescue planes searching in the skies above. One such surviving sailor recalls the heartbreaking moment that one of his shipmates finally lost his grip on sanity. The man claimed that he could see the Indianapolis floating in the water just a few feet below them, and that he could access the mess hall stores of purified water. He made repeated trips beneath the surface, inviting his comrades to come join him in drinking the cool, fresh water that he had found, but the man was drinking pure salt water. He died shortly afterwards from the effects of saline poisoning. Then, on the fourth day of their harrowing survival, a Navy seaplane happened to be passing overhead when they spotted the groups of surviving sailors floating in the waters below. One of the aircraft's crew... Chum in the water. That's your trigger. One of the aircraft's crew members leaned out of the central hatch, waving down at the men, and that's when the tears came. Tears of pure relief and salvation. They were saved. But out of the crew of almost 1,200 soldiers, just 317 survived the ordeal. But for some, the horror, pain, and tragedy of the sinking would never end. Captain Charles McVay, commander of the Indianapolis, was one of the last abandoning the one of the last... What the fuck? Was one of the last... No, okay. Captain Charles McVay, commander of the Indianapolis, was one of the last to abandon the sinking ship. In November of 1945, he was court-martialed for failing to order his men to abandon ship in time, resulting in 300 or more sailors that sank with the ship to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. Cleared of this charge, he was instead convicted of hazarding the ship, a naval term which describes the failure of a captain to properly maneuver his vessel to avoid the likelihood of a direct torpedo strike. Yet aspects of the trial were controversial, as even the commander of the Japanese sub that sank the ship said that zigzagging the Indianapolis would have made a... Yet aspects of the trial were controversial, as even the commander of the Japanese sub that sank the ship said that zigzagging the Indianapolis wouldn't have made a bit of a difference, and that he'd have always found a way to sink her. The disgraced captain was cleared of all charges, was reinstated to his position, and retired as a rear admiral 4 years later in 1949. Yet while many of the Indianapolis survivors agreed that Captain McVay was not to blame for their ship's sinking, the sentiment was not shared by some of the grieving families of the fallen soldiers. Captain McVay would often receive Christmas cards from the relatives of his dead crew members, but they did not have remotely festive tone about them. They would say, "Merry Christmas. Our family's holiday would be a lot merrier if you haven't murdered my son." Red one. Fuck, sorry. Merry Christmas. Our family's holiday would have been a lot merrier if you hadn't have murdered my son. Read one card that McVay had received as late as the 1960s. Despite being cleared of blame, Captain McVay never forgave himself for his failures as a commander, even if it was during the most brutal and decisive war that mankind has ever known. Eventually, in 1968, That's the sound of the soldiers. Okay. Eventually in 1968. Okay. Eventually in 1968, McVeigh picked up a small toy sailor that reminded him of his naval service, walked out onto his front lawn, and shot himself with the same revolver. Fuck, dude. Star Panda, thank you. Merry Christmas, killer. Dude, I honestly don't think, like, okay, you're driving a vessel, you have no sonar, as the story says. I don't know, what else this guy could have done to avoid anything. And they shoot a torpedo stealthily at your hull, killing a bunch of people that, sure, you're responsible for them, but I don't think... Let me untwist your tongue, that's funny. I don't know. I don't think this guy's to blame, and obviously people are quick to blame anything for the loss of loved ones, but it's sad to think that people would torment this guy. Yeah. War is scary, I feel like. Eventually, in 1968, McVeigh picked up a small toy sailor that reminded him of his naval service, walked out onto his front lawn, and shot himself with the very same revolver that the Navy had issued to him upon entry into the service. He was 70 years old. Over 23 years later, the largest war in human history had Over 23 years later, the largest war in human history had senselessly claimed yet another life. Trial by mob, that's true. It's sad. Sad that the guilt, weighs on him that way. Alright, how do you pronounce this shite? Madan. There's also a new horror game out. PewDiePie, I've been saying earlier, PewDiePie played. Looks pretty cool.
Medan.
Okay. Medan. Got 2 more stories to read. Probably tons of little locations we gotta figure out. But we can do it, guys. We can do it. Hell yeah. Let's get to 700 folks before we finish up here. Billy, that's a good point. Largest war in American history was the American Civil War. Let's see. Well, I guess you could say that as far as lives lost, but I'm not going to argue that point. I don't really care. The aura. How do you say this? Orang Madan. Orang. Oh, like orangutan. That's weird. Oh. Orang. Is anybody familiar? You're no gamer, but horror games are the bomb. They are the bomb. I like horror games. There's some sort of like top-down survival horror game. I forget what it was called, but a friend of mine told me about it. Oh, the Orang Madan. Let's listen to how these people say this.
This video is made possible by Wix. If you're
Oh,
going to create a website,
it's funny.
head over to
They were sponsored by Wix.
But other times here, and even though thousands of infographics
Alright,
to
sorry.
try out one of their premium
Let's
plans
let this
right
stupid
now,
ad
the
go
ocean
by
is
and...
a vast, mysterious frontier. And even though thousands of ships navigate its waters every day, from time to time, tragedy strikes and leaves behind little more than a mystery. No wreckage, no survivors, just a haunting sense of what exactly happened. But other times, tragedy strikes
Sea
and leaves
lice to the
behind a
privates.
plethora
Yeah,
of
that's
evidence,
scary.
all pointing at sinister and unbelievable conclusions. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Infographic Show's Greatest Mysteries. Today, we're taking a look at the ghost ship Orang Madan.
Orang Madan. Alright, we got it. Boom. Easy peasy. Ever since man first took seaborne vessels out onto the oceans and what? I just called my sponsor stupid. Yeah, that's funny. No, they're not my sponsor anymore. I guess my freaking podcast was not performing well enough and they abandoned me. They told me to eat shit. So, now I can say whatever. Cheyenne Dory Bob with the 2 says, y'all excited for Dying Light 2? Yeah, dude, Dying Light, I didn't finish the first one, but Dying Light 2 should be pretty intense, I think. Ever since man first took seaborne vessels out onto the oceans and seas that surround us, they have returned with tales of violent storms, sea monsters, and ghost ships. The open waters captured mankind's imagination in ways comparable to that way... What? The open water captured mankind's imagination in ways comparable to the way outer space has today. The ocean represented the greater unknown, but perhaps mankind's most potent fear is just that, fear of the unknown. Perhaps the greatest maritime mystery of all time is that of the Mary Celeste, yet there is another, arguably just as curious event that took place mere decades ago, just after the end of the Second World War. It is a story filled with intrigue, terror, and death in the tropical waters of Southeast Asia. This is the tale of the Orang Medan. The Straits of Malacca is a narrow 550-mile stretch of water between the Malay Peninsula and the Indonesian island of Sumatra. As the main shipping channel between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, it is one of the most important shipping lanes in the world and is named after the Malacca Sultan... Oh, Christ. Alright, Malacca and... what the fuck is this? Sultanate? I have no idea. A state or government in Sultan.
Sultanate.
Sultanate, okay. Malacca Sultanate. La 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 la. As the main shipping channel between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, it is one of the most important shipping lanes in the world, and is named after the Malacca Sultanate that ruled over the archipelago between the 15th and 16th centuries. In late 1947 and early 1948, a number of ships sailing through the straits began to pick up a series of unusual radio signals. Divided into 2 separate parts, sandwiching a cluster of indecipherable Morse code, the message read as follows: "All officers are dead, including captain, lying in chat room and bridge. Possible that whole crew dead. I die." Despite their best efforts, radio operators found it impossible to determine the exact geographic source of the radio transmission. Nothing else was transmitted, just those 2 clipped but haunting sentences. 2 American merchant vessels picked up the cryptic radio messages and were compelled to investigate. Sailors feel a certain solidarity for their own, but the mysterious messages must have piqued their curiosity even more and driven them to try to uncover the truth. With the help of British and Dutch listening posts, the coordinates of the vessels thought to be transmitting were triangulated. After some deduction, it was determined that there was only one ship that the messages could be transmitting from: a Dutch freighter named the SS Orang Medan. One of the American merchant ships by the name of the Silver Star was ordered to investigate the coordinates in question. Obviously, given the nature of the distress call, the captain of the Silver Star wasted no time in setting a new heading and steaming towards the potential rescue site. It took several hours of hard sailing, but eventually the lookout on board the Silver Star spotted a stricken ship in the distance. It was indeed the Orang Medan. No signs of life could be discerned. What? This doesn't make any sense. No signs of life could be discerned. Was the rescue ship pulled up alongside? Was the rescue ship? Story about crabs. These are ghost crabs. They're different. They're spookier. No signs of life could be discerned when the rescue... Okay, I'll say when. Okay. No signs of life could be discerned when the rescue ship pulled up alongside her. The crew screamed and bellowed with all their might, trying to communicate with the unseen crew. After no response was received, it was evident that a boarding party would have to be organized in order to properly search the ship for survivors. From the very moment that the boarding party climbed onto the deck of the Orang Medan, it was clear that something was horribly wrong. It was soaked with blood. The entire upper deck of the ship more resembled a slaughterhouse than a sailing vessel. The broken dead bodies of the Dutch crew were strewn about the scene, their faces frozen into death masks of pure terror, their arms horribly contorted as if they'd spent their final moments trying to fight off some mystery assailant. Fuck. It's always these like long-ass sentences and I fuck up right at the end. Yasmin with the 2 says, what made you get into narrating? I don't know, honestly. Like, my roommates did comedy videos on YouTube, and I wanted to do YouTube, and I had some experience with, like, being with acting in college, in different short films that I helped out with. I helped with documentaries and being the sound guy, so I was familiar with the microphone that I eventually bought, and I was, like, thinking of I wanted to do YouTube to have some sort of creative outlet and kind of pursue it, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do per se that was different. So I thought maybe reading, because I didn't think a lot of people read stuff, you know. And tried it, did some Wikipedia pages, and then eventually I came across creepypasta, saw that a ton of people were doing that, and I was like, oh, that seems to be where everybody's kind of latching onto in the reading world of YouTube, narrations and all that. So then I started doing creepypastas, and then true scary stories started getting more popular, and then it took me a while to do those because I was kind of like pompously thinking that they were not good enough for my voice or something of that nature, you know. But then I was like, screw it. I'm going to do true scary stories, and look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. Look out for the giant crab from Family Guy. Yeah, giant enemy crab. The broken dead bodies of the Dutch crew were strewn about the scene, their faces frozen in death's mass of pure terror, their arms horribly contorted as if though they'd spent their final moments trying to fight off some mystery assailant. Even the ship's dog was unable to escape the carnage, still snarling in death at whatever had massacred its master. Just as the emergency transmission had stated, the captain was also dead, lying face down in his private quarters in a pool of his own blood and guts. He too had an expression of complete and utter terror etched into his lifeless features, almost as if he'd witnessed what the fuck? Almost as if he'd been witness to some kind of unspeakable horror in his final moments of life. What little remained of the bridge officers and engineers was found in the wheelhouse and chart room. They had been completely torn apart and were only identifiable by the insignia on their gore-soaked, shredded clothing. The ship's radio operator, the very same crew member who had sent out the distress call in the first place, was still sitting at his station, radio handset still in his grip. He was no exception. The same terrified expression preserved in the rigor mortis that had set in not long after death. As the boarding party searched the gore-drenched ghost ship, they began to notice several things that immediately struck them as odd or strange. Firstly, during the time the Orang Medan was found, it was summer in the southern hemisphere. Outside temperatures were in excess of 100 degrees, yet members of the boarding party noted that they had felt an ominous chill emanating from somewhere aboard the ship. Additionally, the condition of the corpses were scarily unusual, as they were decaying much faster than was expected, even in the tropics. What's more, Aside from the mess made of the bridge officers, many of the victims displayed no visible wounds, nor had the ship suffered any damage associated with the hostile boarding party. The Straits of Malacca are known for Malay pirates that attack in small, fast speedboats equipped with grappling hooks and grenades, but there was no indication that piracy was to blame, since it is common practice for hostages and cargo to be taken, yet nothing was missing. When the boarding party completed their search and returned to the Silver Star, the captain made the quick decision to tow the Orang Medan back to port for salvaging purposes, but it was only once the ships had been tethered together that smoke was discovered below the Orang Medan's deck. This confused the men who had been part of the boarding parties, since they'd searched the boat intensely and no sign of fire was discovered. The crew of the Silver Star rushed into action, quickly severing the ropes keeping the two ships attached before disaster could strike. Just minutes after, the Orang Medan exploded with enough force to lift it clean out. Clean out. Listening to your cult leader, oh Lord. Oh Lord. Okay, the crew clean out, okay. Just minutes after, the Orang Medan, oh fuck. Oh wait, okay. Just minutes after, the Orang Medan exploded with enough force to lift it clean out of the water before sinking to the bottom of the sea. The first official accounts of the incident were recorded by the United States Coast Guard in May 1952. In addition to the witness testimony which detailed the sorry state of the crew themselves, the published account added that they were all found with their frozen faces upturned to the sun, staring, as if in fear. The mouths were gaping open and the eyes staring. But many naval historians argue that the Orang Medan never even existed, and, officially speaking, it didn't. At the same time the Orang Medan was supposed to have suffered its terrible fate in the Straits of Malacca, the Silver Star was operating under another name entirely, the Santa Juana. The Grace Line Shipping Company had bought rights to the ship and renamed it way after the late 1940s. In contrast, there are some that insist that Orang Medan was a real ship and insist that she was registered in Sumatra. Sumatra was a Dutch colony that formed part of what was known as the Dutch East Indies. In Indonesia, Orang means man, and Medan is the largest city in the island of Sumatra. Hence, the registered name, Orang Medan, literally means man from Medan. However, no records had been produced to prove this claim. Even the UK-based Lloyd Shipping registers... Wait, what? Dude, I would have a field day with Orang Medan jokes. That's funny. Tell us one of your Orang Medan jokes, please. Hence the registered name Orang Medan literally means, okay. However, no records have been produced to prove this claim. Even the UK-based Lloyd Shipping registers and the dictionary... Wait, what? Even the UK-based Lloyd Shipping registers and the Dictionary of Disasters at Sea, 1824 to 1962, has found no mention of the Orang Medan. But there may be a rational, albeit horrific, explanation for the lack of official records. A strong theory that attempts to explain the bizarre demise of the crew of the SS Orang Medan is related to biological weapons designed and manufactured by Japanese scientists led by Japanese bacteriologist Shiro Ishii. Ishii was the head of Unit 731. That sounded weird. Sorry, guys. Ah, fuck. A strong theory that attempts to explain the bizarre demise of the crew of the SS Orang Medan is related to biological weapons designed and manufactured by Japanese scientists led by Japanese bacteriologist Shiro Ishii. Ishii was the head of Unit 731, a secret Japanese military facility that performed insidious experiments on mostly Chinese test subjects. These tests were even more sinister and insidious than the Nazi experiments at Auschwitz, and included creating dangerous biological and chemical weapons to help Japan eliminate its enemies. It is believed that in the aftermath of the war, these biological and chemical weapons had to be shipped back to the United States to be studied. However, some high-tier government agent must have decided that these were best shipped secretively on civilian vessels in order to avoid possible interception by the Soviet KGB. There could have been an incident involving their secretive cargo, unleashing the full force of the nightmarish arsenal on the unsuspecting crew. The truth behind what really happened on the Orang Medan has been buried since the 1950s, and it is entirely possible that we will never, ever know the real story, or if the ship ever existed in the first place. But it is not the first maritime mystery to capture the public's imagination, and doubtless it will not be the last. I really want to play, that new game that PewDiePie was playing, the Man of Medan, because I think it pretty much, talks about this specific story in general, and you're kind of living through it, I guess. It's pretty sweet. Kind of sounds like Resident Evil 7, if you're familiar with the story of Resident Evil 7, but they were transporting biological weapons through a civilian cargo, and things didn't turn out so great. Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, lasagna. Lasagna is amazing. It's like one of my favorite foods. Can anyone here make good lasagna? Oh, shit. Dandelion doll. Joel, did your parents read to you when you were young? Does it run in your family, or are you just naturally good at it? I guess I'm just naturally good at it. Like, I feel like when I was younger, I always kind of did like dramatic sort of internal acting, I guess. And I still do it from time to time, where you're just like talking to yourself, or maybe reading something dramatically, or I don't even know, repeating something you've heard dramatically, or the way that the show did it, and just kind of imitating. And especially whenever I would hear a lot of exposition narrators and that kind of thing, I just kind of thought like, I like how they do that, and I just kind of adopt it into my sort of pattern of speech, I guess. You cook your sauce overnight for lasagna? That's crazy. Pig's guts. Yummy. Alright. So, this last one. Okay, first off, the SS Britannia. I don't even know how to say that one. Looking up some more words to pronounce. See. How do you say the words of... Let's see.
Britannia.
Britannia. Okay, that kind of sounds right, but that also sounds like a robot. Britannia. Major Hawkster. Is someone in your closet? Britannia. Do an ASMR video. I do have an ASMR channel with a few videos. It's called Let's Read ASMR. It's also located on my sidebar on my normal channel. Drew, thank you for... Yep, that's how it's written.
Britannia or Britannia.
Okay. Britannia. Britannia. Britannia sounds like Ia sounds no more normal, I guess. You make Garfield worth lasagna, Garfield would eat all of it. The SS Britannia. The year 2001 marked the 60th anniversary of the sinking of the British HMS Hood and the German battleship the Bismarck. But the 1941... Shit. But 1941 was a faithful year for countless other ships that were lost at sea, including the SSS Britannia, on which I happened to be a passenger. At the beginning of 1941, I was in Cornwall working in a small team. Oh my lord, sorry. Oh, fuck. It's hot, and my brain is broken. At the beginning of 1941, I was in Cornwall working in a small team providing power. Working in a small team? At the beginning of 1941, I was in Cornwall working on a small team providing power for a new station for cable and wireless being built in 2 tunnels in Porthcurno. Shit, how do you say this word? God damn it. Porthcurno. Porthcurno. Sidebar. Pierogies and kielbasa childhood food. Interesting. Alright, how the hell do you say Porthcurno? Pornkerno. Porn kernels. Whoa, you're making steak while you go camping? That sounds amazing. Sounds like orange midong. Alright. Porthcurno. Porthcurno. Oh, okay. Porthcurno. Holy shit. At the beginning of 1941, I was in Cornwall working on a small team providing power for a new station for cable and wireless being built in 2 tunnels in Porthcurno. It was there that I was offered an extremely well-paying job that involved aiding in the construction of Tehran University, all the way over in Iran. So in March of that year, I left the team to begin the journey that would take me from Britain to Bombay in India, and then on Basra in Iraq for the land journey to the Iranian capital. I had no idea that I would never make it that far. My wife saw me off from Euston Station in London. As there was a war on, I did not say I was embarking for Liverpool, as this would have clued her into the perilous nature of the voyage and worried her immensely. But she told me later that she saw it on the side of the train as she left. As it left. The SS Fuck, how do you say that again? Britannia.
Britannia or Britannia.
Britannia. The SS Britannia was used as a troop ship, and there were a lot of Navy, Army, and RAF personnel on board. But luckily for me, I was a first-class passenger. We sailed from Liverpool on the 11th of March 1941, bound for India via Sierra Leone and South Africa. We had an anti-submarine escort consisting of 3 destroyers and an armed merchant cruiser. The destroyers were stationed one ahead and one each to port and starboard of the convoy. The armed merchant cruiser was a large passenger liner that acted as our rear guard. I jotted down details of my journey, including my expenses, in a small diary that I still have. The ship rolled quite a lot to start with, and I was seasick for a few days, but once the sea had calmed down a bit, I found the voyage much more pleasant. Then one day, I found that the Britannia had become separated from its armed escorts. They were now nowhere to be seen. But we figured we were safe, as it was thought that we were sailing too fast for U-boats to catch up and attack. It was a Tuesday morning, the 25th of March, 1941. I had just taken a morning bath and was lying on my bunk trying to cool down. Never had I ventured outside of England before, and I must admit I was having a terrible time adjusting to the heat. Suddenly, a series of huge, booming sounds shattered the tranquility of a morning at sea. I looked out my porthole, and splashes in the water. Something was falling into the water around the ship. I threw some clothes on quickly and made my way over to the starboard side. That's when I heard the Tannoy. Danny Hernandez. Next. You want me to skip this story? Are you crazy? Are you a crazy person or something? Are you loco? Definition. Tannoy. What the hell is tannoy? Tannoy is a system of loudspeakers. Oh.
Tannoy.
Tannoy. Listen to sounds used to make public announcements, for example, at a fair or at a sports stadium. Medium rare. Now that's the perfect steak. Just enough to keep the disease out. That's all I wanted. That's when I heard the Tannoy announcement. A voice echoed around the ship from the small, tiny speakers located on each deck. I'll never forget how terrified I was when I heard we had come under attack from a German raiding vessel. My fellow passengers were panicking as the military personnel aboard began to rush into action, screaming at us to take cover away from any outward-facing bulkheads. As we cowered under tables and prayed for our safety, we could hear the whistling of enemy shells as they flew over the ship. It was a sound I still hear in my nightmares. Our civilian liner had been reinforced with a small gun at the rear of the ship, and it brought us hope to hear them returning fire for a moment. But when the ship rocked under the force of a direct hit, our gun fired no more. We later heard they had taken the full force of the incoming shell, with the entire gun crew killed in an instant. I can remember the officer, Rowlandson, racing to and fro, carrying the wounded to the first aid post, with more and more blood staining his uniform with every trip he made. I thought very highly of that man. After another devastating direct hit from the German warship, there was another... Shit, I just clicked my screen. Fuck. Arkin chicken can't be rare. Oh yeah, you don't want a medium rare chicken. I like my chicken medium rare. We found some of the lifeboats. Wait, what the fuck? After another devastating direct hit from the German warship, there was another announcement over the ship's tannoy ordering us to abandon ship. We found some of the lifeboats damaged when we arrived on deck, which was very worrying, but we still managed to find one intact boat on the starboard aft? Starboard aft? I'm learning so much about the sea. What in the world?
Aft?
Aft. At, near, or toward the stern of a ship or tail of an aircraft. Travis made his way aft. Interesting. We found some lifeboats damaged when we arrived on deck, which was very worrying, but we still managed to find one intact boat on the starboard aft. I inflated my life jacket, threw my overcoat into the lifeboat, then climbed down and got in. In theory, it was supposed to be women first, followed by first-class passengers. In reality, it was every man for himself. There were too many people climbing down the ladder, and some of the crew were jumping overboard. We were forced to lower the lifeboat early to prevent it from being dragged down with the sinking vessel. So many of the crew had to climb down the ropes to reach safety. Some slipped and scorched their hands, causing horrific blistering to their palms and fingers. 2 men were still climbing down the rope as we began to push the lifeboat away from the burning ship. The terror in their eyes was something I'll never forget. They must have thought they were doomed. All the occupants of the lifeboat called out to them to jump into the water and swim to us. Thank God we waited for them, as one of the men was a Sri Lankan doctor by the name of Das Gupta. May God bless him, for he treated the injured as best he could. As we rowed away from the burning wreck of the Britannia, we watched as the German raiding ship closed in for the kill. She was flying the swastika. My heart burned with hatred as she fired shells below the waterline and sent the Britannia to the bottom of the ocean. After 2 days at sea, we found a waterlogged boat with 4 men in it. It suddenly tipped over and they managed to turn it over and got back in. This happened 2 or 3 times. The commander agreed to take them on board. The days at sea did affect some people. After a few days, one man put on his overcoat and threw himself overboard. He had lost his mind from the stress of the whole affair. The commander turned about to pick him up, but it was too late. His heavy clothing had dragged him down into the briny depths. We had sharks with us virtually all the time. They could smell the blood from the wounded and circled us with their With their what? This is weird. Yeah, the every person for themselves. Like, I'd like to pretend that, it would be ladies first, children, ladies first. And of course, first class passengers first as we're getting bombed. But no, everyone would probably be like, get the fuck out of my fucking way, you freak. Ah! And then just do like a do a triple backflip off the Britannia? Are you kidding me? Dude, chance of a lifetime. Dude, a freaking triple backflip gnarly twirl? You kidding? Like, while a freaking swastika bomber's just like a big explosion just right behind you? Like, you gotta go for it, man. Alright, what is this saying? We had sharks with us all the time. They could smell the blood from the wounded and circled us with their protruding from... Oh, their fins. Okay. They could smell the blood from the wounded and circled us with their fins protruding from the water. It was nerve-wracking. It was nerve-wracking. They swam right up next to the boat. Fuck. There's a weird paragraph there. Dude, I would paraglide away. You just... grab the emergency paraglides. You just take it all the way to shore. Like after like 30 miles. Just right next to someone like, hey man, we've been paragliding for like 3 days now. I'm getting kind of tired. It was nerve-wracking. They swam right up next to the boat sometimes, and I could see their dead eyes staring up at us as they did. It was horrible thinking that certain death was only a few feet away at any given moment. After a few days without washing or access to toilets, 1 or 2 people suggested that we have a swim. They put oars across to hold on to, and a couple at a time went over. We were told to be alert, and looking back, we must have been mad. I went in, but I didn't swim. As soon as I did so, we were scared by a pod of whales which had these great whacking fins. The sharks were the worst, but the sheer size of these whales was something to behold. They could have smashed our lifeboat to smithereens with one flick of their tail. I learnt later that Officer Rowlandson was picked up off a raft by the Cabo de Hornos, a Spanish vessel, and he and the French Baroness, who was a passenger, persuaded the captain to continue searching. On Saturday, the 29th of March, we saw the Cabo de Hornos lit up and put up a flare that was spotted by a lookout. We rowed towards the ship, which in turn made for our original position. When we met up, the lifeboat was going up and down with the swell. We climbed the rope ladder, but we flopped when we got on deck and had to be carried to tables. We wanted water, as this has been... Wait, what? Yeah, ride the whales. What are they thinking? Come on. We wanted water, as this has been greatly rationed on our life. Okay. Karina, what up? What up? We wanted water, as this has been greatly rationed in the lifeboat. They then came round with sandwiches, but took them away when we had one each. It took a week or so to recover from the experiences, which was the worst of the war for me. But I thank God every single day that I survived, as there were many poor souls who did not. Oh, man. Oh, man. A little after midnight, 20 past midnight. Billy says, I don't really use any particular knife, but whatever works for you. Why are we using knives again? Grey Ghost, what's up? I think you're unfortunately arriving so late this time, but it's okay. That's why I wish... Sometimes I'm like, you know, you have so many subscribers, or you know, within an hour of, you know, uploading a video to YouTube or something, you have, you know, a couple thousand views or whatever, and I'm just like, I wonder why not like a couple thousand people are just in here randomly, you know? Not that it has to be that way, but I'm just surprised that YouTube doesn't really like tell. Hey, Robin. I didn't even know Robin was here. Robin's currently working on the editing of the Mary Celeste video, so these stories are pretty fitting, to say the least. Tickling everyone's ocean fancy. Karina, you're in the United States holidaying, currently in Minneapolis and very drunk. Uh-oh. Having a wee bit of drink, are ye? Of the devil's hair, or I don't know, the devil's bowl sweat. There you go. That's why you need a knife. Alright, so we've completed them stories there. Time to read our outro. These are going to be sick, though. I mean, you heard them. They were all pretty sweet, so I'm pretty excited about that. I like when stories are good. I should do a live stream where I play the games Feuds is playing. Well, I found out recently that on Discord you can live stream video games. So I was thinking if I ever do play a game and I'm not in another Discord and I'm over in the Let's Read Discord, that'd be cool if you guys, like, you know, who were chilling in there would want to come in and just watch me be a freaking gamer. Like a legit born to game gamer. You want me to sing the outro? No, thank you. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. That kind of sounds like a nice shanty. If you got the story, be sure to submit it to my subreddit. It's called Oh Let's Read Official. Oh Let's Read Official. Join my fucking subreddit, submit a fucking story, and fucking send it in. You might just hear it in a future video. Hotline Miami. Yeah, that's a good game. I love the soundtrack of Hotline Miami. Amani Shields, this is your first time actually turning it into a live and you missed it. That's okay. I usually let people know I'm going to stream on my Twitter, on my Instagram, and all that kind of stuff. So follow me on there if you haven't already. But usually my consistent schedule. So as you know, I upload videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel for my normal videos. And then I will usually stream the night before. So usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, which today's Thursday night for me, Thursday night stream. And this is what will come out tomorrow at 7 p.m. And then, yeah, sometimes Sundays, not as frequently, but sometimes, if you're nice to me, I might just do it for you. I might just shave a sailor's belly with a rusty razor. Venikins Art with a 5 says, Joel and all, please keep us in your thoughts and pray for us too, as I live in Tampa, Florida, and we got Hurricane Dorian coming on its merry way. Oh gosh, yeah, I've been hearing about that. Yeah, please pray for those guys, and please do stay safe, Fennekins. If there's a need to pull yourself and your family out of that scenario, I hope that you do get to a safer place elsewhere. Hurricane season is no joke, guys. So, keep us updated. I hope it just passes on right by. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and close this out here. Hey friends, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to be alerted of all future narrations. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r/Let's Read Official, and give and receive feedback from the community, and maybe even hear your story featured on the next video. And join my Discord to interact with me and other listeners directly. And if you want to support me even more, grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon, and maybe even pick up some Let's Read merchandise on Spreadshirt. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all these stories in long compilation. People are always on my ass about pronunciation. Compilation. Not compilation. Compilation. Though, potato, tomato, whatever. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all these stories in long compilation. Wait, fuck, how do you say it? God damn it. Compilation. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all these stories in long compilation. Jesus Christ. See, now I gotta break this muscle memory. Compilation. And check out the Let's Read podcast, where you can hear all these stories in long compilation form and save huge on data, located on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Links in the bio. Thanks so much, friends, and I'll see you again soon. No one reads that it's on Discord. Oh, my face, yeah. Yeah, that's alright. They'll figure it out eventually. My face is on Discord. It's there. Go join. You'll see me. You'll look at me. You'll hear me. You'll put the voice with the face. But you have to be careful, because you might just become even more enamored than you already are. Just kidding. Reptilian, thank you, brother. Alright, guys. I might be in the Discord actually after this to just chill and edit and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure. I hate to but there will be people in there hanging out. Go make some internet friends if you're bored. They're good people in there. We haven't had any drama of any sort for, dude, well over a month. It's amazing. It's cool. But yeah. And you can submit your art there. You can talk about crazy nonsense conspiracy stuff or politics, or you want to rant for a while. All the good stuff on that. It's the best Discord on the internet. You got to join it. You really, really do. But I love you guys, and I will see you soon. Pradeep's in Discord as well. His beautiful dark face. Join us on the next Let's Read.